Happy New Year. Welcome. This is the Afternoon Idol, back to live streaming status. I am your host, Andrew. I'm a certified mindfulness meditation coach in the Unified Mindfulness System. You can find out more about UM at unifiedmindfulness.com. I am many things, but I am not a licensed mental health professional or a therapist. I am a meditator of a decade plus, I guess to say now. It sounds moderately impressive, more impressive probably than it should. And what do we do here? We do a variation of something at the beginning of our sits, and then we transition from something to doing nothing or being idle. So the title is a not so clever pun, a little bit of a nod to the Dr. Samuel Johnson magazine, I believe, of the 1700s that was called The Idler, which I think has been rebooted in the last 8-9 years by Tom Hodgkinson, I think, British writer. He wrote a book called How to Be Idle that I'm currently reading. And so what do we do in our sits? We do a variation on mindfulness. So when we say meditation, at least in North America, we're using a really broad brushstroke or coarse brushstroke term that is on par with saying like food or music. But what we're really looking at is the more narrow technique of mindfulness meditation. And so one way of looking at that John Kabat-Zinn is this idea of paying attention in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. That's one way of looking at mindfulness. It's used as the definition in a lot of the literature. From a unified mindfulness perspective, we can think of mindfulness as the awareness that is generated when we have three skills come together. So UM has a sort of skills-based approach or a frame or perspective on mindfulness, and that's concentration, clarity, and equanimity. Or to be a little more flowery, it's this idea of concentration power, the idea that we can take our attention and put it where we deem important or where we want for as long as we want. Clarity aspect is about us being able to be clear around our sensory experience, real-time tracking, moment to moment, what's going on in the overall mind-body complex. And then the final skill is equanimity. Roshi Joan Halifax calls this vitamin E. And it's the idea of not pushing or holding on to or pulling on our experience. So the encouragement is to push and pull on your surroundings, to advocate for yourself and others, but for your experience, not pushing away how your experience is at this moment, or not holding on to that experience, having this sort of inner balance. Jeff Warren calls this the inner smoothness. And that's the equanimity. So CC&E, concentration, clarity, and equanimity. Anytime we sit, even when we're doing nothing, we're training these three skills. So what we do is 15 minutes of something at the beginning and nothing at the end. And in between there is usually an element of what we're looking for in our practice. I can't answer that for you, what your practice needs, but my hope is by contrasting these different techniques that what you're looking for more of in your practice will present itself. So I recorded a bunch of things from last week because I was away for those that don't know, I live in Tucson, Arizona. It's a fine place. There's a mountain nearby, and we were able to get myself, my girlfriend, our friends all COVID tested in time that we could reasonably, without risk, go up to the mountains and enjoy that. It actually snowed, which for a desert dweller is quite a treat, and do that. So there was recorded stuff last week. For January, this is the 10% Happier Challenge is going on as well. So today is the first day of that. So for all of January, we'll do live streams weekdays at this time. And I started a little bit late, so sorry about that. So So we usually start at 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 Mountain Time. So for today, I'm just going to play around with the idea of choose. It's a little bit of a choose your own adventure for the do something part. So just working with your base, with your home base. So we think of this idea in mindfulness meditation that we pick an object and we focus on that. We can say when we do that we are anchoring awareness on that object. So I'll have some suggestions if you don't have a go-to home base, but we'll do that. And the key here is playing on the mystery that Jeff Warren talked about last night in the Do Nothing Project, which is seeing how still we can get. So focusing on that home base, but settling into that sort of stillness. That'll be what we play around with. I'll give you sort of a settling in little pre-flight checklist that I normally do. We'll do about 6 minutes of that, working with a home base and focusing on or trying to get still, cultivating stillness. And then we'll shift into the do nothing part. If you're new to this, what the hell is do nothing? In this situation, we're letting whatever happens happen. We're just keeping ourselves in this position. We're staying still. We're allowing whatever's happening in our experience to happen. And then if we were to spontaneously realize that we're trying to control or orchestrate or maneuver our awareness in some way, we try to let that go. And if we've done that multiple times where we're letting go, we can consider whatever's going on as part of whatever. So we'll let whatever happens. And if you see this spontaneously, this idea that you're trying to orchestrate and control, let that go, knowing that at some point as a meditator, you'll drop into, like I find myself dropping into breath awareness. So I'll be sitting and doing nothing, and then all of a sudden I'm counting my breaths. So I let that go, but then I start counting. And so being loose and pliable with that. So staying in the situation where we're not serious, we're not beating ourselves up. So that's a lot of stuff. Hopefully that lands for you. And if it doesn't, you can always ask questions in the chat. As a coach, I love to hear reports. So at the end, you can share reports. All reports are valid. So if the report is that sucked, I'm totally open to hearing that. So no problem. Again, if you have questions, I'll try to offer responses. So, all right, let's do this. So I invite you to adopt a posture that helps you be both relaxed and alert. That's the basic meditative state that we're familiarizing the mind with. And some keystones of posture there is this idea of being upright and dignified. And you can do this in a seated posture, in a chair, totally valid. If you can pretzel your legs up and sit cross-legged on the floor and you have a cushion and all that, totally fine, but equally valid to sit in a chair. If you can lie down without falling asleep, it's an option. And always available to stand up. All 4 positions, totally valid. Each of us holds tension in different ways. So as we begin, just checking in to see if there's any tension present, holding or bracing. And often when we shed the light of awareness on that holding and bracing, the tension will melt. And if not, it's our first opportunity to bring a no big deal attitude to our sit, to being idle. And then finally, as we start to settle in and see how still we can get, doing a few deliberate conscious breaths. So if nasal breathing is available to you, you want to breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the nose. If possible, elongating and extending that exhale. So breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. We're aiming to leverage the wisdom from the 3 sages of the 5 boroughs, the Beastie Boys. And breathe in slow, and breathe low, and that's our tempo, slow and low. And if you're congested and can't breathe through the nose, you can purse your lips and breathe in and exhale also through pursed lips is one way to sort of slow down the breath. It allows us to breathe lower into the lungs. So to begin, we're really looking to get still and to sort of see what shows up as we get still. So if your eyes are open, you'll notice that I have a tendency to move a little bit. So as we begin, I'm just trying to be as still as possible. And we can focus our attention in the beginning on a sensory experience that is stable and familiar. Again, that's often called your home base. Very traditionally, that's the breath, but that doesn't work for everyone. So we can use sounds around you. And if you choose that, you'll notice the sound. You can optionally label it here. Notice the sound. I have a small puppy, well, not puppy, but I have a dog sleeping next to me, softly snoring. Or you can choose the sensation, sort of wider awareness aperture of the sensation of the body sitting in your posture. Again, noticing this sense, stable, maybe the pressure of the body sitting on a chair, soaking the attention in. And for this, we can use the label feel. Or you can focus on the breath, which is a totally valid option as well. Regardless of your choice, explore just how settling and still you can be. So I'll leave you with that and check in about 2 or so minutes. So as you get still, sometimes, but not always, when the body is still and settles, the mind will settle as well. So that's a possibility. And it's also possible that every cell in your body may not want to be sitting still. So you can end up with the attention being pulled away. And so if we can muster the care and patience to just bring the attention back, knowing it'll be drawn away, bringing the attention back, knowing it's drawn away, bringing the attention back. So any judgment about that is extra. You can leave that out. The mind will wander, no big deal. And if you've been able to settle in, you may have a tranquil or pleasant state around that, allowing that to soak in if that's possible. And if it's not, being okay with the fact that it's not available today. Good. So now we can sort of metaphorically think about the fact that we're entering into the part of our sit where there's an open range. If you've ever seen a road sign with usually some livestock, and the idea is that there's no fences for the livestock. They may be on the road or near the road or far from the road. And the rancher is letting that livestock roam. So just like that, let your attention roam wherever it wants to go, whatever it wants to get up to, being okay with that. And if you spontaneously notice that you're trying to micromanage the attention, let that go. And the attention will often get up to things that may be a nuisance. Just seeing if you can bring equanimity to that. So explore, do nothing from this dance of stillness. So if you find that the attention is kind of showing up in a way that's annoying or just not what you were hoping for, check your posture briefly and see if you might, maybe you're leaning forward or you're bracing, or just look and see if there's a way to adjust slightly. And if your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them. Gently reconnect to your surroundings in your own time. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for making the time to be right here. Thank you for spending 20 plus minutes with me. So, as I mentioned, we've got a couple extra folks than we normally have. If you have questions, I won't guarantee I can give you the right answer, but I will definitely respond. If you have reports, I'm always interested in hearing that. If you have any other questions around meditation as a whole, I guess I should say, game for that as well. So I invoked Roshi Joan Halifax at the top, and she has a way of looking at practice that I particularly like. And as you move into a new year, I think it's somewhat helpful to have in the back of your mind, which is that sitting makes you sort of ripe or accident prone for having insights or getting the benefits that we're often looking for when we're meditating. So when we are driving hard and sort of striving for a particular result in meditation, it is often the way that you will not make it to wherever you're headed. So it's and so the insights that people are often looking for are stuff that you stumble onto or that they're accidental. And so regular practice is a way to, as Roshi Joan says, be accident prone. So I just would offer that. And really the comes down to just being able to get yourself here. And then ideally I try not to judge my sits as a good sit or a bad sit after that. Although if I have a good sit, I'm definitely gonna marinate in that a bit. So yeah. And Sarah, so glad that you could make it, even if you're late. Awesome, Jill. That's so good to hear that it was a good set or a great set. Sorry. Yeah. Being able to practice outside is really wonderful. I did a retreat with Brian Lesage outside, and it was the first time I'd really sat outside a lot, and I really love that. So yeah, the mind wandering gets a little old, but being able to have that vitamin E is really it's what I need so much of is really the equanimity piece. Early on in my practice, it was the sensory clarity. I needed the sensory clarity. So, but now that I've trained that skill, the second C of concentration was probably the thing I found most enjoyable at the very beginning of my practice. So But thank you for sharing that, Jill. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be back live as well, Jennifer. So the stillness part. So yeah, so Jeff's kind of outlined. I think the next. I don't know if it's 10 or 12. Well, maybe it's 12 weeks since it takes us into March. Kind of these meditation mysteries, and so stillness was yesterday's. I know that sort of bare awareness and spaciousness are also kind of on the docket that we'll explore as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, interesting. So Jennifer points out that she's found that she's able to detect the very beginning and end of sensations. Yeah, and that's very interesting. That's a very good insight. So by being able to do that, by being able to tell the beginning and the end, you in essence have you can think of it almost as like data from raw experience available for comparison, and in doing that, then you can see change between the beginning and the end. And the way that in unified mindfulness flow is defined, it's seeing the change in sensory experience like that. So it's a yeah. And then also I know, Jennifer, that you have a little bit of a background in So in some of the special exercises, there's arising and passing is noting the arising and passing of sensory experiences is an exercise that you'll find that's included in the kind of wider set of exercises that unified mindfulness has. And then another aspect of there's a practice that focuses just on the ends that I keep kind of mixing in because I like it, which is Shinzen's term for that is called gone. And he wrote a piece maybe 7 years ago now, where if he could only teach one technique to someone, it would be just note gone. And so that kind of, I don't know, that caught my attention, that was something that Shinzen Young saw as being so beneficial and important. So, and yeah, I don't know that I kind of want to play around with the themes that are in the Do Nothing Project because they're they're very interesting, at least to me. So I'm glad that I'm glad that others are finding them interesting as well. All right, so we're a little past the bottom of the hour. Thank you again for spending time with me. Thank you for those that watched the recorded videos that were released last week. I appreciate that. I did get a few notes on them, so I appreciate that. And then we'll continue on into January. We may run out of comparison sits, or I should say, comparison sits may not hold my attention into February. So I may decide to shift things a little bit in February, just as a forewarning. But I'm not sure what that'll be just yet. We will continue with opposite day on Thursday, inspired by Jill. So we'll switch up the ordering. So we'll do nothing first and we'll do something at the end. And then I'll try to stick with like a Friendliness Fridays sort of a thing. So sorry, I have a puppy that's demanding attention over here. Well, not a puppy. I keep calling her a puppy. She's kind of like a grumpy old lady, but so yeah. So have a great Monday and get your 10% happier sits in today. The reluctant meditation guide, Dan Harris, is your guide for today if you haven't done it already. I think I have my friend link on my bio on Instagram. So so if you want to add me as a friend in the 10% happier challenge, I'm doing that. And I'm being moderately restrained and not trying to sit like a crazy person. So I won't end up like Bodhidharma and have my arms and legs fall off. So yeah, so you can, if you go to Instagram, it's my last name, Leonard as in David, S as in Sam, so Leonard's, no O. You'll find me on Instagram, and then on my profile, you can click on the link, and then I think it's the first link in my little bio thing, my little link tree. So see you tomorrow.